Every once in a while, we revisit a conversation from past CrimeTime episodes that still carries important forensic insight. This video is one of them. In this earlier discussion, forensic anthropologist Dr. Murray Marks walked us through how skeletal trauma can reveal the mechanics of a fatal injury and why the injuries in the Stephen Smith case raised serious questions about the original hit-and-run narrative. It's a forensic breakdown that remains just as relevant today.
Tonight, we're going to talk about Stephen Smith, the second autopsy. It's going to be explained by our forensic anthropologist, Dr. Murray Marks, and we are looking to give you an overview on what's in store in the future for this autopsy. This attorney, Brian Claypool, he's a legal analyst. He made that broad statement of 8 to 10 years, you could still get soft tissue. You're a forensic anthropologist. Can you talk on conditions down in the Deep South in South Carolina? This young man, Stephen Smith, was interned in 2015 and is going to be exhumed here in 2023. What are we looking at? And I know you can't say definitively, but could you just give the audience just a little bit of an overview of what would be the state of the remains here?
Well, that really depends, Ron, on the state of the body going in and, of course, the embalming. Embalming can preserve remains for a good long period of time. It can provide the pathologist with a lot of information or completely deny the pathologist that information. But the bones are going to be keen to tell you everything. And of course, the anthropologist works for the pathologist. We're brought in when he or she needs us to answer the questions that they're after. But decomposition-wise, that's a really tough call. It depends on what took place as far as the embalming is concerned. I've been party to probably half a dozen exhumations where I've been surprised and I've been not so surprised at some of the remains, some of the soft tissues that are there. So it's really a rough call at this stage as to what pathologist. Many times that soft tissue is completely gone away and the pathologist says there's nothing I can do. Again, by re-examining, reevaluating the slides and things like that were taken the first time around, that's an important component of it. But and then other times, looking at those bones, looking at those fracture sites again, those things aren't going to change. So whether there's radiographs, initially the body can be re-radiographed and that information can be, brought forth. Again, that's the value of the anthropological component. If the pathologist so desires, to have that included in. Hopefully there'll be one there. Many pathologists obviously know that kind of material, but hopefully, again, that bone trauma is going to be preserved, whereas that soft tissue, it's really a flip of a coin as whether that's going to be valuable or not.
When Stephen Smith was found dead on a country road, his mother Sandy was convinced it was no accident. Stephen's car was 3 miles away.
I thought it was staged, like his body was staged in the roadway. It looked like somebody had hit him in the head with some kind of object.
By late 2016, the case went cold.
All I want is peace and knowing what happened to my son.
Somehow, some way in the Murdaugh murder investigation, a new thread was opened up into Stephen Smith. We are aware of no evidence today that would suggest that any Murdaugh played any role in Stephen Smith's death.
Our primary function right now is to have that body exhumed, have a true independent set of eyes look at it and tell us once and for all what really happened to Stephen Smith.
They brought on forensic pathologist Dr. Michelle Dupree, who says Stephen died from a single blow to his forehead.
Literally split his skull.
And split his skull.
Now, Murray, when it comes to a fatal car accident, pedestrian car type incident, what type of bone damage or skeletal structural damage you might find here?
Well, in that you'll find what's probably synonymous with blunt force trauma, but to most of the skeleton, of course, depends on the speed of the vehicle and the location of the victim and things like that. But for the most part, you're going to have multiple fractures. Long bones, ribs, any type of any region of the torso. The head will be impacted, arms. A lot of things can be present there. Probably not sharp force trauma, but would be synonymous with blunt force trauma.
Mm-hmm. And based upon the position of the damage on the body, we can gather other information, such as whether the vehicle was decelerating, hitting the brakes, or accelerating, and the front end of the car would lift up and hit the body higher.
Right, right. Yeah, so directionality is a real important thing that, that the pathologist can discern by looking at the bone fractures. He or she can look at those things and get an idea. The anthropologist is interested in the physics or the mechanism of trauma, but the actual crime scene, of course, that belongs to the pathologist and the death investigators. So we kind of fit in, our piece to what they're asking. But yeah, you would expect some, a lot of different breaks based on, speed, deceleration, location of the body, and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And whether the body was run over or flipped up into the windshield, based upon the impact and so forth, then you would see associated damage. Now, we have the Locard's exchange principle. And usually if a vehicle is going to impact a person, there's going to be an exchange of materials between the vehicle and the person. And there should be evidence of that vehicle impact left at the scene as well. And I've heard nothing in this case about them finding any broken glass, any paint on the vehicle, from the vehicle on the victim's clothing, or anything like that. Analysis can also say whether or not a certain instrument was used to cause the blunt force trauma, especially in this case where now there's talk of a baseball bat being the cause of the blunt force trauma to the head and to, I believe, the shoulder. Is that correct, that your analysis could assist in that?
Right. The good thing about bone is that it keeps a memory of everything that impacts it. And sure, a semi-lunar event or instrument hitting a curved surface, bones fracture different ways. I mentioned before the physics or the mechanism of trauma, and a lot of times that can be discerned. So putting an exact weapon like a baseball bat or a tire iron or a fireplace poker against the skull and seeing if it fits, it might, but you might not be able to isolate a certain weapon. But obviously, blunt force trauma can be discerned.
In my area, I would be looking at those clothes. I hope they can pull them out of storage and then relook at them for DNA, because if this is in fact a staged crime scene and the body was killed someplace else and then picked up and transported to this scene and deposited here, you would think there would be some hair and fiber transfer, there would be some DNA transfer to the victim's clothing, because somebody had to pick this person up, put them in some mode of transportation, and then bring them to this location. Well, there's two areas of evidence that needed to be concentrated on here. First, the clothing, and then, the pathologist, the body itself, the body and the bones. So that would be the pathologist and the anthropologist. But the scene, I doubt it. The roads could be repaved. Different things could have occurred to this area in this environment. I would have little faith in finding anything 8 years later at the scene itself. Okay, because first of all, we don't even know if that's the original scene. Like I said, this could be a secondary scene where the body was dumped. So we still haven't identified the original scene where the crime took place. And again, if you do identify the original location where, quote unquote, an alleged crime took place, it's 8 years later.
Right.
Could there still be DNA there? Absolutely, depending on, if it's indoors or outdoors.
And Ed, do you still think that they would have his car? Is his car still in custody?
Yeah, his car was abandoned down the road. He was left behind.
With the gas cap off. Do you think?
Right, and his wallet inside of the car and all that stuff. I don't think they still have that car in custody. But even if you went in the car, but and you got fingerprints or you got DNA of certain individuals, well, that could be explained away. But if you found blunt force trauma or radial spatter from blood spatter from blunt force trauma or something to that effect in and on the car, well, that could be something different.
I mean, I definitely think he was murdered. There's two things that come to my mind: either he was murdered there, or he was murdered elsewhere and dropped there. I felt like the brass, which would be the people running the highway patrol, should have stood up and went to SLED and said, "This is not a hit and run. Y'all are asking us to investigate something that is not a hit and run, line by line by line, explained to them why this was not a hit and run, and tried to hand them the file, and they would physically not take it in their hand.
Meanwhile, the Highway Patrol's accident investigation team, MATE, kept working the case, but there were limitations.
We had MATE come in and answer some of the questions we had, but we are not trained homicide investigators.
Blunt force trauma, that bone keeps a memory of everything really well. It does really well with ballistic events, with sharp force, with blunt force. There's a general component of size, measuring, the face of a hammer, baseball bat surfaces, things like that. Transfer of material is really good, whether that's, of course, hair is important, but also paint can transfer and things like that into the cortical aspect of bone. I can look at things and say this could be, but I can't place an exact thing on it. And really, the best thing I have is that I render an opinion, and it's up to the pathologist that I provide the report for them to decide or see if it's going to be something that's credible to their investigation. So, you can a little bit, but not all the way.
One last question, because I condensed some of them we've already answered. Is there any soft tissue left, DNA and forensics, from the body after 8 years?
Well, I'll just take the part about maybe getting DNA from the skin, because I saw that in the chat. The funeral home director and those that prep the body, they're going to wash the body down, and even post autopsy, it's going to be washed down as well. Okay, going to restitch up the body and wash it down, give it to the funeral director. The funeral director is going to wash it again and embalm it. So at that point, any DNA that's left there on the clothing or of the victim would be from most likely the funeral people that worked on the body and put the body in the casket if they weren't wearing gloves.
8 years after Stephen Smith mysteriously died along a rural South Carolina road, his family is finally hopeful for answers. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division announced it is now investigating his death, initially ruled an unintentional hit and run, as a homicide. Police initially said Smith was hit and killed by a car after he ran out of gas while driving home. An autopsy report stated he died of blunt force trauma to the head, possibly from the impact of a side view mirror. But the initial report said they see no evidence to suggest the victim was struck by a vehicle.
It just makes no sense to us that he could be struck in that fashion badly enough to cause his death, and there'd be no vehicle debris of any kind whatsoever.
My understanding, if you're hit by a vehicle, even at 20, 25 miles an hour, you're kind of like knocked out of your shoes, so to speak, and you're smiling. And
it doesn't matter how, if you're wearing boots or sneakers, low top sneakers, and you have them all tied up. I've seen it time and time again. You get knocked right out of your shoes. I mean, I don't see it. It was an unsolved case. Even a hit and run can be classified as a homicide, right? So, and it was open. They hadn't identified the perpetrator. They hadn't found the vehicle involved, right? So it would still be an open case, or what we might call today a cold case. Okay, given the length of time, it hasn't been solved, right? It's an unsolved case.